You are now listening to Back to the Podcast with Rob and Dave. We're going to entertain you with a quick review of Raiders of the Lost Ark. All right, now we get to establish how good Indy is in a fight. A number of native Egyptians jump Indiana Jones at the behest of the Nazis, apparently.
Yeah.
And we get to see, Indy take on waves of face-wrapped natives who are attacking him with knives at first, trying
swords.
to protect Marion and get her out of trouble. But when she runs off,
She hides in a basket.
leaving Indiana Jones to no longer have to worry about her, so he can start fighting in earnest. And then we are confronted by the first incarnation of a recurring nemesis in the Indiana Jones movies.
The swordsman shows off some of his moves.
Yes, throwing a sword around and whirling it around his body.
And Indy's not having it.
It is not having it.
He just pulls out the gun, boom, gone.
Which becomes a running gag.
Now, that scene that we're talking about there had a couple things. One, Harrison Ford was really sick that day, and it was supposed to be like a
fist fight.
Sword fight,
yeah,
an epic one, and he just was, can I just shoot him? And like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. That'd be funny. So hence the whole scene where you get the swordman doing his moves, and you're expecting this great fight, and he's like, whatever, bam, gone, done.
And the expression on his face when he does it is pretty priceless. I don't have time for this. Yes.
Oh, and then what happens pretty closely after this now is the great the basket scene where
Indiana hears Marion's voice coming from a basket that a couple of the natives are running off with.
Yes.
And she's going, Indy! And Indy goes chasing after her.
And it turns into this fun little scene where he's looking for her in these baskets, and
it's kind of Scooby-Doo-esque, really.
Well, in the music that goes with it is another one of those great Indiana Jones pieces that is not necessarily, thought about when you think of Indiana Jones music. It's the basket chase.
I do. It's nice and tense and crisp, and definitely keeps the energy up.
Yep, very energetic. Yes,
which all comes to naught when, after ticking off a lot of natives by spilling baskets, that every by the way, most popular basket ever. Everybody has to have this exact same basket. So 50 people in the square all have the same basket. So Indy knocks a whole bunch of people's laundry all over the place.
Oh,
and then goes and chases them into a blind alley occupied only by a cat.
Oh yeah, the cat. I like that. I just, when I watched this for this review that we're doing, that was the first time I might have noticed the cat, or at least made a mental note of it. Even when I had the projector in the basement, I never even noticed the cat before, but this time I noticed the cat, and it's just, how cats are. They're very skittish. When you run up to them, they're like, oh, what are you doing? I'm going the other way.
Yeah, Indiana comes in, and that cat gone, but no Marion, until he gets a lead on them, and they are loading her into a truck
and
full of explosives.
As the truck closes up, drives off, some explosions.
Indiana shoots through the window and takes out the driver, which causes it to veer, topple over, and kaboom. No more Marion. We are all sad.
And the Marion theme plays it's the Marion and Indy love theme more so than anything.
And our next shot is Indy goes and tries to drown his sorrows, getting drunk.
Yep.
Before he is asked, fairly politely, to follow a guy to another bar, which reveals his buddy, Belloc, who is not the person Indy wants to see right now. And Indy is appropriately drunken, upset, and has no time for Belloc. Belloc reveals that he is here because the Nazis value his skills. But he also tells Indiana Jones, hey, why are we working against each other? We're basically the same thing. Kind of a recruitment pitch, sort of gloating too. When he makes it very clear that as Indiana Jones is ready to kill Belloc, he's outgunned badly in this bar.
Yes,
and will not be able to do it. So the children of Sala come and save Indiana Jones and get him out. Again, this is an interesting thing. Indiana Jones does not get out of this very bad situation by his own skill, by his own guile. He's saved because he has friends, and the friends come through for him in the end. The kids of his friend. But again, that's kind of a nice touch and another depth to his character. Indiana Jones is not the best and coolest guy who always wins every fight. Sometimes he gets by because he has good friends.
Yes.
So something I find fascinating with the character. So then we start going and getting ready to talk about the dig, which becomes an important set piece.
Sala and Indy are discussing things. They're talking about the dig site.
Yes.
They believe that the dig site is wrong.
No.
Is it?
The Germans have found the lost city of Tanis. It is buried. It was swallowed up by a sandstorm in mythology. So they discover the city, and Indiana Jones knows, because they got the headpiece translated, that the headpiece has to be inserted into a staff of a certain length. The medallion actually has the writing saying how long the staff is supposed to be. The problem is the backside of the staff tells you to shave off some of the height of the staff. We find out that the reason why the Germans have it is because somehow holding a hot piece of metal will tattoo its face onto your hand. This is, you have to stretch your disbelief to some extent. And so, of course,
let's try this.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No. I've seen burns before, and I've seen burns from hot metal, and it does not do that. But it works. It produces more story, so we're fine. So the creepy German has the front half of the headpiece branded onto his hand, which they go by to find out how long the staff should be. The problem is they don't have the backside, which tells them to make it shorter, so they're digging in the wrong spot. They know that the Germans' primary search is wrong, but they don't know exactly where, so they have to go through the same ritual the Germans did by having the right length of staff and putting Indy down into the map room. Now, you know what? I was completely wrong. I can't believe earlier I said that I never played the video game for Raiders of the Lost Ark, because I did. I played it for the Atari.
Oh, that one?
Oh, yeah. That was it.
Well, I had this
before guides or anything like that.
16-bit system of Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
that was side-scrolling fun.
That's yeah. I played a game that had no clue on what I was doing. That was kind of a mess of a game. But one of the most exciting parts of that game that I remember was when you actually could get into the map room, and you had to sit there and you had to wait for the sun to come up. Had to sit and wait for like 5 to 10 minutes. And then you would see a dot, which would show you where in this cliff you had to whip to so that you could get into the Well of Souls. It was actually randomized, so you couldn't just go to the right landmass. You actually had to use this mechanic and go through the storyline. It was actually faithful to that, which was kind of cool. Boy, it was a pain. That was a harsh game. So you do get to see this cool moment where Indiana Jones has the staff and laser-like the beam shoots out and highlights where the actual Well of Souls is.
Another example, too, of the music being used over this whole scene, because essentially what you're doing is you're watching Indy just, look at notes, do all these other things. Kind of what he did in the beginning with that idol that he was grabbing for.
Correct.
And you got just music kind of just going. And I believe it's intercutting with other stuff as it's going on.
Yeah, because Sala at the time is having a difficult time being a watch for Indy because the Germans find him and drag him off to serve them water or something. And he has to eventually beg his way back, but he tosses his rope into the hole, so he doesn't have his rope anymore. So he improvises with Nazi flags.
Yeah.
So Indiana's waiting under the hole, sees the rope, goes Sala, and then gets hit in the face with a rope made of tied together flags. That was a cute moment. So they get out. Now they know the location, which is hacking gone away from where the Germans are digging.
Right.
You see Indiana Jones with a surveyor's tool, and he finds the spot on a ridge, conveniently with a nice sheltered wall away from the rest of the camp, so that they can work in relative obscurity.
Yeah.
And he gets his victory chuckle on when he realizes it, and then finds out that Marion is alive and she's in Belloc's tent. But again, he realizes he can't rescue her here because he can get the Ark.
Yeah.
If she's gone, he'll never get a chance.
Right. It's like that situation. And other movies have done this too, where some characters are tied up or whatever's going on, and the hero comes in, but they can't really rescue him yet, because if I rescue you now, that's gonna ruin everything that's going on. We're not gonna be able to accomplish our goals. We're gonna have to keep you in here for a little bit, and then I'll come back. I promise.
Yep.
And
which Marion really isn't having, but she doesn't have a choice. She's all tied up, and he gags her.
But
awesome.
Marion's able to pull her own and get keep. This situation happens where
she charms Belloc.
Yeah.
She charms Belloc and gets a nice dress out of it and attempts to find her own way out of the place. But of course, creepy German happens.
Yeah, this scary German guy.
And he employs probably the most intimidating use of a coat hanger in movie history.
Yes.
I want that coat hanger.
They've talked about that, where he takes the coat hanger. Well, you don't know what it is.
It looks like a 3-section.
It looks like it's going to be like some sort of torture device. And he just takes it out and maneuvers it around. You're like, oh my gosh, what is that going to be? Oh, that's a coat hanger.
He puts his coat on and hands it to his flunky. That was actually really awesome. So we go to a lot of digging. Indian Sala and his laborers are digging up on the ridge. And you get the epic storm. You get the thunder, the lightning.
Oh.
No rain, but it's definitely supernatural storm going on. The coloring, the lighting. It gets effects. Absolutely. It gets a really surreal feeling as they're opening the well. And they open it, and there's a rush of air out. And of course, you get to look in by throwing a torch down, and Indy, the floor is moving. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? Egypt is known for nasty snakes. The bite of the asp can kill you in, I believe, under 10 minutes. It's one of the most toxic snakes in the world. The cobra is also a deadly snake, and I think it's indigenous to that area. So, Egypt is a place for bad snakes. Up here in the Midwest, we're lucky. We don't have very many, but that place is crawling with deadly snakes, and so is the Well of Souls, as it turns out. We have another wonderful set piece. We have these huge statues. It's dark and crypt-like, and of course, underneath they've got lots and lots of snakes. So they have to find a way to get rid of these snakes. That becomes an obstacle, which is accomplished by torches, clearing a path, and then Indy goes down first. Again, we know that he hates snakes. He's borderline terrified of them,
but he's got to do this. Just
asps, very dangerous. You go first. And he does. And he puts himself in danger. He goes down, gets a canister of gasoline, and we have snake barbecue. I don't know, but I suspect that no snakes were actually harmed in the filming of this movie.
Probably not.
Probably not. A lot of dead rubber snakes. So Sala then comes down when it's safer. And he and Indy move forward, and they go to the kind of a altar-looking structure at the end of the well, and with two poles. They lift the poles up, and there's the big arc reveal. And it's beautiful. It's golden. It's got the eagles on the top. If you've seen the movie, you're imagining it right now as I'm talking.
Yeah, that device made by aliens.
Yeah, that. Still one of the coolest props in moviedom in my mind. They take it, they box it up, and they get ready to ship it out of the well.
Sala goes first out, I believe, right?
Well, an interesting thing, the digging and exploration all took place at night, but it's not night anymore. It's morning. And while Belloc is trying to wheedle his way out of getting a 9mm demotion from the Germans for not having found it, making excuses, he realizes that those folks up on the ridge aren't his. They're not digging in the right spot. So what's going on? That's when he goes to investigate, and Sala goes up, and we find, hello! Oh crap, it's Belloc up there. And he has Sala, and he has Marion, and they've got the Ark now. And India's at the bottom of the Well of Souls, which is not a good situation for him. And of course, they're not going to let him up. And Marion is combative, shall we say. And she is tossed into the well with Indy. She survives by bouncing off of the statuary and eventually slides down into Indy's hands. She's not appreciative of this. She shoves off from him and gets a face full of snake.
Oh, yeah, because of she left him, or he left her there when he could have rescued her.
Yeah, she's pretty furious with him. And she's wearing that nice dress, too. But yes, so Indy gets her up, and they have only a limited number of torches left to hold back these snakes who are coming in through holes in the walls continuously. Of course, Belloc seals up the well. You have this wonderful shot where its daylight is diminishing. And then in another movie, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, when you hear that, you would hear a Wookiee howl. Nope, this time it's the well sealing up and trapping Indy and Marion inside. So the Germans prepare to move out with their prize and satisfied that this time, for sure, Indiana Jones is gone. Well, they don't cooperate.
Yeah.
Indy realizes the snakes are coming out of the wall because it's got holes in it, meaning there's something hollow behind it. So he gets to the statue which is the worst constructed big heavy stone statue in history, because a person getting behind it and pushing on this massive stone statue can topple it like it's made out of paper mache.
Oh, well,
Yeah, it's movies. Movies, what are you going to do? And so he knocks the statue down and breaks through the side of the Well of Souls, which takes them into a side chamber, which is mercifully snake-free. They must have all gotten into the party.
Well, yeah, that's important. If you're the snake, you gotta go where the others are.
Yeah, the problem is, though, why are the snakes in there in the first place? There's no prey. They would all have just starved. But it's good for the movie and the set and creating the challenge for Indiana Jones.
The snakes might not know that, and they might eat each other, for all we know.
Fair enough. So they find a way to get out, and there's a crack in the wall. They break out, and they are free again. So, then, coolest use of a collapsible hanger ever. I wonder if there's someplace that sells that hanger that the creepy German had.
Yeah, it's got to be. Just Google it later. I'm pretty sure you can find something like that.
I guess.
It's probably a real thing. Otherwise, they never would have.
So then Indiana decides, okay, well, we have to try to get the Ark back. So they see that there's a plane that is fueling up. We should steal the plane. Don't think in none of the Indiana Jones movies we've established that he's actually skilled at piloting, but he does know something about aircraft.
Yeah, very little. He flew the plane in the third movie. Wait. Gotta think here, because in part 2 he's like, do you know anything about flying a plane? And he's like, no.
Do you?
And then
maybe
boom,
he takes a few flying lessons by the
it's very plausible. By the time you get to the third movie,
now he can fly the plane.
Now if you look at it from the prequel aspect, Temple of Doom, that he didn't know how to fly a plane, so he almost crashes. So by the time you get to Raiders of the Lost Ark in story mode here, he might have learned a thing or two. So if that same thing ever happened, this time he can just right out.
Character development. Yeah. It works.
An accidental one, but.
So now we come to another of the running, I don't know if gag is the right word, but it's a recurring scene. Indiana Jones gets into a fight with a person he really probably shouldn't be fist fighting.
Big, bulky German dude.
Who is familiar, although you didn't see him before. He was the same guy who was the swordsman.
Yep.
That he just got shot.
Pat Roach. He is probably the actor. His recurring role in these Indiana Jones movies is almost doing the same thing. He's the guy fighting.
He's big. He's strong.
Indiana Jones.
Yes, and he's got a good physical presence. So they get into a fist fight. He comes out when he sees Indiana Jones trying to go up and take out the pilot of the plane, and because they think they're going to fly the Ark out, and he gets into a fist fight with Indy. Indy is losing the fist fight until the plane is turning because of hijinks from Marion, and I believe she knocks out the pilot with the wheel chucks from the plane, but unfortunately then gets sealed into the gunner's ball turret. The plane is doing slow circles. Indy is knocked to the ground by the big muscular German. And then he ducks for cover because he sees that the rotors are spinning around. The German doesn't realize it until too late. He turns around and tries to cover up, and he gets turned into German potato salad.
Yeah, of course, you really don't see that.
You don't. And I don't know how you would cinematographically. Yeah, that's not a word. How you would actually do that in a movie. I don't want to think about it, but
Alien 3, one of the prisoners fell into one of the vent shafts that had a propelling blade thing.
Yeah. Fair enough. But that happens to him. Fight over, Indy wins. They get up. He gets up to try to free Marion, less so than get the plane moving. He shoots the hatch on the turret, gets her out just as the spilled airline fuel comes over to the plane, and kaboom. And now that's been blown up. That removes that option for Belloc for getting the plane out. It stirs the Nazis up, so Indy and Marion have to go and hide again, but then they are forced to move it by truck to take it to their next location. Marion does get to show that she can shoot a machine gun. She takes out several guards and the airline part of the base, and of course the fuel tanks, but blows up the plane. So he goes to Sala and he finds out, they're moving it by truck. India says, I'm going to go after that truck. How? I don't know. I'm making it up as I go. One of my favorite lines from the whole thing. Just admitting I'm just winging this and trying to do the best I can.
Yeah.
It's introspective. So comes the kind of a chase scene.
Yeah, the truck chase.
Yeah, the truck chase. Indiana Jones gets to the truck with the Ark, which is also full of soldiers. And there's a convoy. Belloc and the creepy German are in
the convertible front.
Yeah.
They're in the convertible, and that other German officer that we never really talked about this other German guy, but you had the scary German guy, and then you got the military.
I am really ticked at myself for not writing down their names because they were in the credits in the end.
Dietrich. This one I can pronounce.
Yes.
Dietrich. I can say that. Other one, the creepy German guy. His name is Taut. I mentioned before. I'm not even bother trying to. We're just calling him creepy German guy because I can't even pronounce his.
Anybody who's seen the movie knows him as creepy German guy.
Yeah.
I can just about guarantee it.
Dietrich is another one of those characters, another German, more military. Whereas I think creepy German guy is more of an enforcer type.
The way I see it is this. Dietrich is your German military officer. Creepy German guy is your Gestapo, your SS. He is if you're going to epitomize the evil of the Germans, he's that side of it. The other guy is just a guy who's trying to win a war for his country. Well, it's still Nazi, so of course there's not a lot that's that's very positive for him, but still, yes. And in addition to that, you have the other players are all the other Germans. So Indiana Jones goes through the truck, at one point getting knocked off the truck and being dragged by it. It's a good thing that being dragged behind a truck doesn't do a great deal to you at first.
In these movie verses, the Indy's gone through a lot of stuff that would technically probably kill you.
We're actually going to cover this in a little bit too, but Indiana Jones gets racked going through this thing. He does not come unscathed, which is again another important thing for pulp action heroes. They don't get through unscathed. They do get hurt, they do get beat up, but they soldier on. So he gets up, he gets control of the truck through punching and kicking. He starts ramming cars off the road, off of convenient cliffs. Mm-hmm. It's the cliffs of Egypt. And you also have Indy getting hurt. He gets shot in the arm by the driver, but he muscles through. He actually, scales through the underside of the truck all the way and then drags along the back, fights his way back up. The German gets launched through the front windshield and gets run over. Now, that was a very definite that the truck gets as he gets run down.
The old school effect on that, too. Just, obvious dummy.
Yeah, obvious dummy. But still, for what it's worth. Ultimately, though, they run over the German. Indy gets away, and with the Ark, he rams Belloc off the road. And he's fought off all the Germans. He eventually gets away. And he gets to the port, maybe port of Cairo, not sure. But meets up with Sala, who gets him a boat to try to get back to America with. The Ark. And the captain seems to be a nice gentleman. Little rough as sailors go, but, definitely demonstrates that he's the guy who's rooting for Indy.
Right.
And... again, another interesting thing, and somewhat progressive too. As a black boat captain.
Well, you got to remember we're in a different country when this is. You're in Cairo.
Sure.
The race stuff going on like in America in that time frame versus other countries is slightly different.
But you're talking in the movie verse. You still have this. This isn't created in a vacuum and everything.
This is 1981 though yet, so it's not. It's not going to be that unheard of to have the
It's not unheard of, but it's also
captain.
not real common that the black captain turns out to be a pretty decent guy, which is cool. So we get to see that Indiana Jones did not escape unscathed. He's trying to take off his shirt, and Marion has to help him out, which leads to a nice tender scene between the two of them. Clearly, Marion has forgiven him, seeing the hell that he's gone through. And they have the Ark in their hands, so maybe she's carried away by their success.
I think they're getting ready to conceive Shia LaBeouf.
Oh. Anywho, yes, Mutt. That one we're good. Okay. Anyhow, so thank you, Dave, for derailing me. So
what's going on?
Yep, they have their moment, and then the boat gets stopped because there's a German U-boat, which is never good. So they go to try to hide. Unfortunately for them, Marion gets caught again. The Germans take possession of the boat. The captain says, "I killed Indy." And the Germans are, okay, they killed Indy. Awesome. We've got the Ark. We've got the girl.
Let's go.
The girl is, Belloc wants Marion in all the ways. And they've got the Ark, so they load it onto the U-boat, which you then, at the end of that scene, you see Indiana swimming over to the U-boat. And everybody, all the people on the boat were cheering for him. Where is he? He was over there. And there he goes. He gets onto the boat. Everyone's cheering.
Pretty good swimmer.
Really good swimmer, although assuming the boat hadn't started propulsion yet.
So, where did his hat go during all this?
One thing I can tell you from having a leather hat, and again, hats are more durable than you think. You can crush it flat and put it inside your shirt.
Okay, because from this point on, he didn't have it. I'm like wondering if maybe it was left on the boat, and then maybe afterwards he gets shipped to his house. I don't know. I was just like,
well, he knows the name of the captain, so maybe he's like, dude, send me my hat.
Yeah, I want my hat back.
Some way or another, he gets it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he gets over to the German U-boat, somehow gets inside. It's a good thing they didn't start diving right there. Otherwise, this would have been a comedy.
In a comedy.
It's exactly. It's an action movie. You have to have some suspension of disbelief, and they might have had somebody come up to give one last look without needing a periscope, and he could have punched the guy and got in. Anyhow, he gets in. He gets a uniform from he smuggles himself on board a busy German U-boat. Mm-hmm. That's a good trick.
I mean, it's got the Ark on it, so there's a lot of activity going on.
Right. Somehow he managed to smuggle his way in. They go into a secret Nazi sub-pen in a base somewhere in the Mediterranean. I don't recall if it actually said. It just said secret Nazi base. And he gets out of the boat first, and he takes out a German and takes his clothes. They mostly fit. He gets dressed down by another German officer and then just takes him out. Decks him, which was a nice touch.
Yeah.
But now we're at the Germans' secret base, and things are getting tense. We're at the end. So the Germans demonstrate that they are kind of contemptuous of Belloc, because Belloc wants to do a ritual and open the Ark. His curiosity has gotten the better of him, and apparently he's doing this with Hitler's blessing, because they don't want to take it back to Germany and find out there's nothing in it.
Yeah.
So he insists on doing his own corrupted version of a Hebrew ritual to open up the Ark, with himself as the high priest, which interesting role for him, and attended by all of the top Germans in the area. So they're getting ready. They have a motorcade to go out and take it out to the secret site, and Indy reveals himself with a Panzerkrieg, the German anti-tank rocket launcher.
Yeah,
and holds up the motorcade by threatening to blow up the Ark. And Belloc talks him down, telling him, this is history. Go ahead and destroy it if you can. I don't think you can, because you love this stuff as much as I do.
This is the scene, too, that's pretty weird, I believe, because when Belloc is looking up, a fly or something flies into his mouth, and the guy keeps acting.
Yeah.
You're like, ew.
That's dedication to craft.
Yeah. I'd be like, Indy, why don't you... There's a fly. Can we do this again? That was what I might do, but, I'm going to look up his name, give him Paul Freeman. That's some fine acting, sir, if you can act with a fly or some insect flying into your mouth. That's pretty good.
Fair enough. Well, of course, this leads to Indiana getting captured by the Germans and dragged along for the ride. They stake he and Marion together back to back so that they can watch the ceremony, which is being recorded and filmed.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the Germans are present. Soldiers are all lined up in formation. You have creepy German
and Dietrich.
Thoth. Dang it. And Dietrich. I will say his name. Tot.
Tote. See, creepy German guy.
How's that a German name? I don't know. Anyhow.
So, hey, remember Hitler had this master race thing going on, and he didn't even qualify for that master race. So it doesn't matter if that dude's German or not. So,
but they're standing right next on either side of Belloc. They start doing the ritual, chanting in Hebrew, and they open it. And Belloc reaches in, and all there is dust. And this, of course, gets Tot laughing.
I like that, too, just because he's so, like...
He's an evil cynic.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he just starts bursting out laughing. And
yeah.
It's great.
Again, he's laughing at Belloc's misfortune, and, you have to believe that he, didn't believe in any of this stuff anyhow. Dietrich is probably shocked at all of this and horrified at the idea that he's going to have to go back and explain that they didn't get anything of any value.
Well, that explains the look on his face when it...
Yeah. And then everything starts going supernatural. You get fog coming out of the ark, and Indy realizes this isn't good and tells Marion to close her eyes no matter what. It becomes important.
Mm-hmm.
Because now shapes start coming out of the ark. Very supernatural, very Ghostbusters-like.
Yeah.
A lot of these similar effects that you had at the end of Ghostbusters had a lot in common with the supernatural scenes there.
I believe, I bet you it's the same guy.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. You start seeing images in the ghost-like apparitions that are swirling around the Nazis. At first they look like women, beautiful women, and all the Germans are like, "Oh, this is amazing." Belloc says they're beautiful, and then you get a close up, and they turn into almost cadaver-like, skull-like,
like the Ghost Library from Ghostbusters.
A little bit.
Which is, I did look it up. Richard Edlund, he did both the visual effects for Raiders of the Lost Ark and Ghostbusters, which might also work on how the appearances were pretty similar.
Absolutely. That does not surprise me at all to find out they're the one and the same. So all of a sudden, the supernatural gets ramped up. People start screaming. Dietrich just starts shuddering and moaning. Tot screams. Belloc is stunned. The soldiers are panicking. Then bolts of lightning start shooting out and frying the cameras, which diverges and kills off all of the Germans. Indy and Marion are spared. They are lashed with wind, but they are not themselves fried. Also, Tot and Dietrich and Belloc are not affected by the initial bolts of lightning coming out.
They got some special stuff for themselves only.
Oh, yeah.
We get, it looks like head shrinking to Dietrich. His head just kind of like
crumples in on itself, and kind of like a paper mache balloon that just popped and then deflates inwardly. But that's not the most memorable effect,
right? In fact, we'll save the memorable one for the last, even though it's not in that order.
Yeah, Belloc just explodes.
His head explodes over 3 layers of fire, which there's a reason for that, because they wanted the movie to be PG. His head exploding gave the movie an R rating, and Spielberg and Lucas are like, well, what can we do to get this to be PG? And they're like, well, maybe if you layer it over other layers of film, maybe that'll do it. And that's what they did. So you still get the head exploding. Belloc's head explodes, but they layer it with a couple frames of fire. So it's not like you don't see it completely explode. However, the best effect happens to Tot.
But it's an interesting thing, though, that the knife edge on which a movie's rating balancing is so thin, because like you said, you can still see it.
Yeah.
The head still explodes.
Yeah. And maybe
because there's a couple layers of fire before it and it's not quite as graphic.
But you still see the
boom chunks fly. Yeah. And it's bartering and dickering for the rating is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Besides which, you get a better effect of the guy standing next to him with Tot. You have the great face melting scene, which, as a kid, graphically, I was not a huge fan of. It's graphic because he has this pale white skin, and the outer layers start melting off, running, and then he opens his mouth, and you see the really bright red inside, and that eventually joins and takes over the white, and the eyeballs,
everything
stay
just
in the skull.
melts.
It just melts.
Melts.
Interestingly enough, the DVD that I had a special feature section, and it actually shows the special effects artistry of them having constructed this multi-layered head, and then the person responsible, what was his name again?
Chris Walas.
Chris Walas. Thank you. I had that down.
Yeah.
But you see the him standing there with a heat gun and doing this, and it took him a while, and he got spattered with hot wax, but they eventually got the shot. It looks really graphic and really, really good.
And it kind of, Chris Walas was able to use these techniques in some of his future movies. He went on to do Gremlins, special effects for Gremlins. And I believe you just mentioned on our little Christmas special how the melting gremlin thing, you had memories of that same guy doing the effect. And he won.
Mr. Wayland, you have traumatized me twice.
He won an Academy Award for his work on The Fly, which he didn't just do he did all the effects for The Fly, the makeup and the same technique to use to melt a hand, which I put two and two together with all these three movies, and I'm like, that's his thing. That was his thing, to be able to do the gross effects, essentially. And I don't know what he doesn't do a whole lot now, obviously, because it's kind of a dying art form, I guess.
Yeah, especially with CG being probably cheaper and obviously faster than the practical effects.
Yeah, but
I'm sure he's still in special effects somewhere, though, if he's still alive.
No, he's still alive. There's nothing really spectacular.
Okay.
Not as much.
He's probably now fallen back as part of a company and does things that he doesn't get individual credit as much for.
He won his Academy Award for The Fly, so he did his stuff. Went into directing for a little bit, but he's the stuff like in Raiders, the melting face, huge impact.
Sure, absolutely. So then we get the resolution. The entire site is cleansed by wind and fire as a huge pillar raises up the lid of the Ark into the sky. Indy and Marion are still on the ground zero, their eyes closed, but they are not being affected other than buffeted by the winds. And then the lid comes back down, closes on top of the Ark. Indy opens his eyes. Sight is clear. No more Nazis. The Ark is just there. God has taken care of everything, apparently, and they're not even tied up anymore. So they've been freed. So he and Marion have a tender moment.
Maybe this is where Mutt is conceived.
They could very well be.
Oh,
so they get a boat ride home, which is when I suspected Mutt was conceived.
Yeah. Okay.
And they take the Ark back triumphantly. They get back to Washington, and Indy is talking to our friends in the Army, who he has turned over the Ark to. And he wants to find out what happened to the Ark. It has to be studied. It's dangerous. He's seen what it can do. The Army assures him it's being studied by
top men.
Yes. Indy gets stonewalled and stomps out, calling them fools, to meet Marion. Marion and Indy go off. Happy ending. Triumphal sounds at the end. Again, wonderful, wonderful chorus in the end.
And then we see what's going on with the Ark.
Yes, the Ark is in, which we now know, Area 51.
Yes, the fourth film establishes that is Area 51. But, for all intents and purposes, it's, just a gigantic warehouse.
And
full of boxes and boxes and boxes of who knows what.
And you see the crate with the burned Nazi swastika symbol among all of these.
Yeah. So
yep. That is the end. It ends with the swelling music of the London Symphonic Orchestra. And thus ends Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first Indiana Jones movie. Again, a really good movie put together with cinematic patience, indulgence for character development, good dialogue, good action. All in all, I think it's time we rate this movie. What would you think of that, Dave? Now, Dave, are you coming over to the dark side with me and leaving behind the 4-star system?
Yes, yeah. I kind of looked over kind of, I can easily adapt to that after reading what you sent me and how you would rate these and the reasons why. And that's why I kind of went a little crazy sending you, okay, so this is how I'd rate this just based off of what you did and those formats there. So, so out of a 1 through 10,
Yes.
this easily is a 10. And as I said before, even when I would rate the other way, no other film trilogy at the time, let's just say, has ever gotten a full 10 rating from me before, or 4-star at the time. And what I mean by that is I'm already spoiling that I can say I like all the Indiana Jones movies, all 4 of them, but the first 3 would get 10 ratings because they're all that perfect to me.
Okay, that's nice. I'm going to give it a 9, and it's 9 is not saying it's a bad movie. I know a lot of people, if it's not a 10, it's not good enough, but 9 is an excellent movie. It does almost everything right. It's action, it's tense. I think it has very few underwhelming, somewhat tepid moments that don't add to the story. There's a little bit of indulgence in the Egyptian the opening and stuff. You had the solid establishing shot, and then you had some garbage time in there. Not much, very, very little. And in addition, some of the music was excellent throughout. The dialogue for the most part was pretty good. Too excellent. Harrison Ford's characterization of Indiana Jones was again very good, and established this character as the standard for most of us for this kind of an action star. He's not the action hero that is the unstoppable force. He is much more human, and as such, much more relatable. A lot of people have tried to recapture many of these characters.
Bruce Willis probably did pretty good doing the John McClane and Die Hard but then as those films go on, then not to the extent of Rambo though, but as John McClane kept coming back as your regular everyman character, I suppose that's relatable as well as Indy.
Mm-hmm. I would also say too that this standard that this movie set made some movies that tried to do elements from it just not seem to do it quite as well. I'm mostly thinking of something like Romancing the Stone. Douglas did not capture Indiana Jones. He was his own character, which was good.
Yeah.
But the action movie just didn't seem as good because I'd seen Raiders of the Lost Ark and it done better.
I think Romancing the Stones and all that, I think those are more so comedy angles too.
They are, but they did have some elements that they were kind of drawing towards, obviously there's some overlap in things like Alan Quatermain, another good movie, but compared to Indiana Jones, it just kind of seemed a little bit more B movie than Indy.
Which movies though? My understanding is
mostly Alan Quatermain and The City of Gold is the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, because I know they tried doing some of those movies for modern big budget stuff, but those just didn't do anything. The Mummy almost the Brendan Fraser mummies almost take the Indiana Jones model.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, doesn't quite pull off the same, I don't know, vulnerability.
No.
The character is almost cartoonishly good, whereas Indiana Jones isn't. So and there were a few small areas where herp derp because of movies that you just kind of accept. It doesn't mean it was bad. It just slight flaws. The back of my brain was screaming, how is he pushing the statue that's obviously a couple of tons, and he's pushing it?
I think I was saying the same thing.
Yeah, it's very minor. That's really the difference between a perfect movie where you completely can buy into it, and these little moments that take you just a little bit out, but relatively just almost none of it. 9.5 easy. Really good movie that is kind of the exemplar of these kind of movies for me.
Yeah. Did we know John Williams did the music, who is somebody who works with Spielberg pretty much nonstop, with a few exceptions, and Star Wars. And you mentioned John Williams' name. He's pretty much almost known as any rock star, but I mean, to the point where some people just think John Williams does music for every movie almost. That's how
it seems that way.
That's how well known he was for the 80s and 90s. Now you got so much variety, and as new composers are coming in, you start rebuilding a new generation of composers out of that.
Right.
So,
and again, you can oftentimes tell how great a movie is by the number of imitators or the legacy it leaves behind.
mm-hmm.
And any period action movie has taken at least something from this. Almost all of them since this time this movie came out back in 82?
81.
81?
1981.
That have, borrowed, lifted, wholesale stolen things from Indiana Jones. It's certainly become a common target in our cultural mindset of this kind of a character and this kind of a movie.
I think the Canon Film Company probably took advantage the most out of making their Indiana Jones type films, because they could probably do it relatively cheap, but do it in the schlock action format too. I'm trying to think, because every movie's always got movies that when there's a success like Raiders of the Lost Ark, everyone wants to imitate. Star Wars comes out, everybody wants sci-fi movie. Sure. Raiders comes out, everybody wants to do a Raiders. Die Hard comes out, everybody wants to make a Die Hard movie. Scream comes out, well, then you get I Know What You Did Last Summer. Everybody does these things.
I Know What You Did Last Friday the 13th. Go for the mockbusters too. But another thing I like too about this movie is that they made every attempt to not have characters that are just because. Indiana Jones is a hero, but because he's earned it. You feel that all of the accolades that he is and all the success he has, it's because he earned it. It's not just because India is awesome. Like Luke Skywalker is the chosen one, who's going to fix everything. The Germans are not evil just because they're Nazis. They're evil because they're led by sick bastards who aren't afraid of torturing and stray acts of murder. Their evil is shown on screen rather than just implied, which is something a lot of people don't do, again, in movies.
They just say they're evil and you got to go with it.
Yep.
That's a bad guy. I noticed that a lot with the, quote, corporate bad guys. Is just, I'm not saying some corporate people are evil, and I'm not saying they're all nice. There's probably a few good in between. But that seems to be the stereotype for movies is, oh, that guy's in the company or corporate. He's automatically bad. Why? Just because.
Right.
Oh, okay. I guess. All right. That's the movie.
So, great movie. Had a lot of fun with this one. Hope this inspires you to go back and check this cinematic masterpiece out. And of course, that means there's 3 more movies in the series, along with other media we could go over if you wanted to.
Total of 4 films, a 5th one being written now. Coincidentally, at this point in time, this could change too. Lawrence Kasdan wrote the script for Raiders of the Lost Ark. He did Empire Strikes Back for George Lucas. And right now, the 5th Indiana Jones film is being penned by Lawrence Kasdan's son, who I believe helped him script Solo. So it's going to be kind of interesting if this script survives, because the way Hollywood goes, these scripts kind of come and they go, which is something that will be talked about heavily when we talk about part 4.
Very cool. All right. So we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If you have, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog. They love podcasts. They'd love to hear us. And make sure you keep checking out these old classics as we spin them for you. I'm Rob.
And I am Dave.
And we have brought you back to the podcast. Thank you.